In the wake of Galleon sinking, our next guest says the hedge fund industry is facing a transformational crisis. She's Marina Lewin, Managing Director in Alternative Investments at Bank of New York Mellon. She says it's important to focus on what's next for the hedge fund industry. Marina, welcome.
Good morning.
Let's just address one issue about Galleon to begin with. Early days yet. The charges just came on Friday. Raj Rajaratnam and the other 5 who were accused of insider trading arrested. Is there anything about Galleon that we can say at this point should explain what we've seen thus far, or is it too early?
I believe it's too early to evaluate the specifics regarding Galleon. I could see one thing in terms of investor sensitivity. One of the items in the institutional world is headline risk, is that to associate yourself with the name of a particular hedge fund that may have difficulties is something that most institutional investors will work very, very hard to avoid. So I can see some sensitivities in the headlines coming out of this crisis.
And that presumably would explain the behavior that we've seen over the past few days. Managers pulling their money, or at least investors pulling their money aggressively out of Galleon, presumably for that reason.
Absolutely.
Just whatever happens, guilty or not, you just don't want to have to explain to your own limited partners or your own shareholders why it was that you kept money there.
Correct. And that has the most immediate impact. And I think that the rest we'll see over time.
All right, you're an expert in what's called operational risk. Headline risk falls into that broad category.
Correct.
As we look forward, because we've seen an extraordinary 18 months for the hedge fund industry, what should investors and people who cannot invest directly in hedge funds be thinking about when it comes to that industry?
Well, I think that you're correct that the industry has gone through what we call a transformational crisis, like most of the financial world, through the end of 2008 into early 2009. I think that one of the things that we've seen that's been pretty remarkable is that the hedge fund industry is coming back like the rest of the financial world. It did not bottom out in terms of its redemptions and performance as low. We had predicted in our most recent study that the assets would bottom out at about $1 trillion. And they did bottom out in June of this year to a level about $1.3 trillion. So they did not come down as far as the experts had predicted. And the redemption rates and the performance has stabilized, and some hedge funds have had terrific years. All
right, we've just actually talked about some good numbers for the industry out of Eureka Hedge this morning. What happens, though, when you have a scandal like Galleon? It's not proven yet, but it obviously has shaken the faith in some in that fund. But also, is there potential for some people to grow concerned about hedge fund investments again after seeing what appeared to be such a solid firm face these kinds of accusations?
I think that there'll be continued focus on items outside investment performance. Clearly, investment performance is a key criteria for investors deciding to get into hedge funds. But there'll be continued look at other areas of risk. So, for example, liquidity risk. Again, how easy is it a hedge fund to raise cash should they need it? Looking at operational due diligence. Who are the partners of a hedge fund? What is the level of independence in striking an NAV? How are the custody assets held? Who are the other investors in this fund to make sure that when I need my money, there will be assets there for me? And if I'm a long-term investor, making sure that other investors have the same criteria that I do. So I think that all those measurements of risk are critical. Co-investor risk is an interesting one that really came out of the last crisis, making sure you know who's in the fund with you so that their liquidity needs may or may not be close to your own.
Marina, that is great insight for people in the wake of what we've seen with Galleon, how to look at hedge funds. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank
Marina
you.
Lewin of Bank of New York Mellon.
Thank you.